And I'm here with Alex Young, who just graduated from St. Xavier High School and is headed off to college. And I really wanted to talk to you today before you left, because you have been working on getting rid of corporal punishment in the state of Kentucky since the 8th grade?
7th grade, that's
right. 7th
right.
grade, wow. Okay, so tell me, how did you get into it? What did you learn, and what made you really want to take this passion on?
Absolutely, thank you so much for having me. First of all, it's really exciting that we're amplifying student voices. Yeah. I love when students and young leaders get the opportunity to share some of the amazing work we've been able to do.
Absolutely.
So I first got involved with this project when I was in 7th grade. I was researching topics for the Kentucky Youth Assembly, which is one of our mock government programs here in the state of Kentucky for young students. It's really an incredible opportunity for students. So I was looking into different legislation to bring as a student author. And I happened to stumble upon that corporal punishment was still legal in Kentucky schools, that students were actually being paddled in schools in the year 2017. And that just, my jaw dropped to the ground. It was unbelievable to me and really hard to imagine. So I was able to take that topic and present it before the Kentucky Youth Assembly, and it passed easily there because just about everyone was shocked that it was still around.
Right.
And then after the conference, I wrote to my state representative saying, look, how is this still a thing? What are we doing? And my state representative, Jim Wayne at the time, wrote back to me almost immediately and said, you're right, how is this still a thing? And from there, we started the groundwork.
And like you said, how is this still a thing? But just because it's on the books doesn't mean it's actively a thing and being implemented. Did you learn that there were school districts in the state of Kentucky actually putting this into practice?
Yes, unfortunately there are quite a few. When I started in 2017, and this is one of the things I'm most proud of, when we started in 2017, there were 452 instances of corporal punishment. Last year there were 7, so I think that's a testament to the work that we've been able to do.
Absolutely, and walk me through that work. So you contacted your state representative, you presented on the subject, and then you didn't stop there and say, okay, we're done. What were the next steps?
Right, and it was really challenging actually. Getting started was probably the hardest thing.
Okay.
So in 2017, we knew it was a short session, so what we were able to do was have a press conference and just kind of get the word out, let people know that this is still a thing.
And what's by we, who do you mean?
So there were 3 other students that initially helped me on this project,
okay,
and a few teachers that were also really, really upset when they found out that teachers were paddling students.
Yeah.
So we kind of built a little coalition of students, teachers, and then from there we were able to recruit medical professionals, lobbyists, and it really just became a movement, which was incredible to see. So that year, it was difficult to get that momentum going, but we were able to, probably about a year and a half later, when we finally recruited our first Republican co-sponsor, and that's where the progress really started.
Why did that make a difference? What was different about having that co-sponsor?
Well, I think in Kentucky, we have obviously a conservative majority, but it was really important for something that's so common sense to have bipartisan sponsorship, bicameral sponsorship, and really representatives from all over the state who have very different backgrounds, who felt that this was important.
So that co-sponsorship, you got it into consideration in the General Assembly. Take me through those next steps. You actually went to Frankfurt. Did you speak?
That's right. So I spoke in 2019. I was able to speak before the House Education Committee, but we were really upset to find out that the bill was only put up for conversation, put up for discussion, which is basically the equivalent of getting a little TV time, but saying we're not going to hear it, which was really upsetting. And we found out a little bit later some of the behind-the-scenes action that went on. There are a lot of people who are still pretty steadfast in their belief in corporal punishment and what they claim to be local control. But we were able to kind of fight that, and the next year we were able to actually get a hearing and a vote.
Did you hear from legislators who are absolutely like, you hear a lot, well, I was spanked when I was growing up. Was there a lot of that sentimentality?
There was a lot of that rhetoric, but it was interesting when it got to the House floor and when it got to votes, people would still vote for our bill. So there was this gap in what people were saying and what they were actually voting for. And that's one of the reasons why it struggled. It's because no one wanted to vote against a proposal that would help kids and stop them from being corporally punished.
Right.
But they didn't want it to be voted on because they were worried it would upset some of their constituents and possibly lose some votes.
And some of the things that you uncovered also were that corporal punishment was actually the inequities within that for students of color as well as disabled students. Talk about what you found out there.
That's right. So nationwide, the Department of Education has done some studies. In 2008, they released a very big study saying that there was highly disproportional students of color were being corporally punished at a much higher rate than their white peers. In Kentucky, that hasn't been as much of a problem number-wise, at least statistically, just because we have such a higher white population in those rural areas where it's still used. But the most upsetting part about it in Kentucky is that it's used much, much higher on students with a disability. In 2019-2020 school year, 46% of students that were corporally punished were disabled, had a disability.
How did you feel when you found that out? Like, what was going through your heart, your mind?
That was the most upsetting thing I think that I had seen in any of this work. It really reaffirmed what we were doing, though. It gave us reason to keep pushing.
Yeah. Did you find out as to why? What is it about that specific population in Kentucky that, is it just because?
Well, I think there's a lack of understanding on trauma-informed practices, lack of understanding of students need love, students need care, schools need to be a safe place. And I have no doubt that those educators don't care for their students, but I think there's a misunderstanding of what we need to be doing in order to help them, especially students with adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah.
Educators need to know how to respond appropriately and how to help those students.
Now, you went so far as to call one of the superintendent's office to inquire why this practicing was happening. How did you identify that specific school district, and what prompted you to pick up the phone yourself?
Absolutely. So when the school data report card came back, we saw that there was a significant increase in corporal punishment cases from one year to the next. It actually doubled statewide. And when you break down the data, I got out my spreadsheet, looked at it. Clinton County, this one county, was almost completely responsible for the increase. The increase was so dramatic that I felt it upon myself to actually call the superintendent.
Were you angry, upset, both? Like, what was going through your head?
You know, for the most part, I was hoping that it wasn't real. Like, how could this be? How could this be
So
that corporal punishment was just increased? So I called the superintendent. I'm like, what's going on? She claimed that, no, we can't be using corporal punishment like that. We barely ever use it. She called me back the next day with her attorney, saying that they had in fact used corporal punishment that much. They hired 2 new assistant principals who felt that that was an appropriate way to punish students. So I think that really affirmed what we were doing, that if one educator, if one individual can use corporal punishment to such a degree that corporal punishment incidents double statewide because of that, I think that really showed that corporal punishment, that it varies from county to county, and that's not a consistent punishment.
Were there any corrective actions on that specific assistant?
I'm not aware of any personnel decisions, but I know the superintendent left after that year, and the next year corporal punishment cases went back to the numbers that we had previously seen.
Gotcha.
And actually we're a little bit lower. And Clinton County's numbers decreased significantly after
Do you
that.
celebrate at that point? Like, and who do you celebrate with?
Well, I don't know if we really celebrate, just because it's sad that we're even having to have those conversations. But we were relieved, I'd say, just because it should have never happened in the first place. Right. And we were relieved that they were able to take action, and it wasn't a situation where it continued on.
Was there any time in the last few years going through this data, trying to get it in legislation, that you wanted to give up, or you were frustrated, or you were like, this is not going anywhere, why am I still doing this? Were there any points like that?
Absolutely. There were definitely times where I was frustrated, especially when we passed it through the House, and then only to find out it wasn't going to get a hearing in the Senate. But what I found through that, I've learned a lesson of perseverance, I would say, just because even though we haven't gotten to the point where we're sitting with the governor, watching him sign a bill, we have seen the dramatic decrease of corporal punishment, which was the ultimate goal. We were never in it for a photo op. We were here to actually make a difference for students. And I think that we really have. And we're not there yet. We're not done. But I really would like to say that we have made that difference that we set out to make.
I've read that change happens with a chip, then a fall. And it sounds like these past few years you have really been chipping away at the issue. That brings us to this year. Tell me what happened this year, because there were a lot of things that I mean, once again, you were in General Assembly, the Kentucky Board of Education. They implemented some administrative policy.
Absolutely.
How did your work lead up to that?
Right, so what we've been able to learn, and I've learned a lot about this, taking a comprehensive approach. Okay. So after last session, I guess 2 sessions ago, when we realized that the bill didn't pass and might have challenges in the upcoming session, I was able to meet with the Commissioner of Education at the time and some of the Lieutenant Governor's staff, and we were able to work together to create an administrative regulation that the Board of Education would vote on to put that Band-Aid on to try to stop some of the bleeding of corporal punishment. And that's one of our most proud accomplishments in this work, is that we created a regulation, I think, that will effectively end corporal punishment, hopefully this year, but definitely in years to come.
That's great. That's great. You're leaving for college. You're going, where are you going to school?
The University of Notre Dame.
Wonderful. So you're leaving the state. How does it feel to not walk away, but how does it feel to go on to the next phase in your life and still have this project in Kentucky that needs attention?
Right. And I think that we've built that coalition that this isn't going to be something that's left behind again. We had that point in Kentucky where people forgot about it. Most of the legislative conversations I was having, legislators didn't realize that corporal punishment still existed, and then started getting phone calls from school board members that threatened to run against them if they got rid of it. So I think that there are people who still think this is important. We're not going away anytime soon. My parents and teachers have always taught me the value of leaving a place better than you found it. And I think we really have with our effort over the past 6 years. But I'll be back.
Have you handed the baton to anyone else?
Well, I know the state legislators that we worked with, Representative Riley, Senator Julie Rocky Adams, Representative Wilner, they are all still very passionate about this issue. They'll keep fighting for it. And even if we don't see a legislative end to it, I think they're going to keep following up on the data, making sure that administrative regulation, which that regulation would stop administrators from hitting students with IEPs or the individualized education plans. So that would mostly solve the equity issue we're seeing with students with disabilities. It would require parents to sign off on it twice. It would require counseling for any student that receives corporal punishment. So our goal with that regulation was to just make it an absolute nightmare for any administrators to want to use that.
Right.
So we're really hopeful that that will effectively end corporal punishment. But eventually we'll get it off the books completely. And it may take till I'm in the State House of Representatives or Senate, but we'll get there.
That leads me to my next question. What's next for you? How has this influenced your direction?
Well, it's taught me a lot of things. It's taught me that I can actually make a difference, and it's slow. Change is definitely incremental, and I've learned a lot of lessons in patience through working with the state legislature and working with individuals in policy. But it's taught me that I can use my platform and my talents of public speaking, being able to network. It's taught me to use my talents in a way that can advocate for others to do something for the community. And I think that's something I definitely like to continue.
So you definitely have your eye on politics?
I think so. Yeah. Right now, that's the direction I'm headed. But no matter what I do, I'm looking to help the community. I think that's raised me. Awesome. It's so important to me. Right now, Kentucky, from 2018 to 2021, had the highest rate of child abuse in the nation. Last year, we were still in the top 5. So it's important to me to be able to really help a community that's been where I've been raised. It's really important to me to be able to do that.
That's wonderful. I hope you'll keep in touch with us.
Absolutely.
And let us know where you are on your journey. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and we wish you the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great talking to you.